Thank you very much. I would like to add my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shukri for the organisation, the extraordinary organisation which took place on this trip. If you can imagine moving 60 European MPs and MEPs around, all from eclectic backgrounds, political and otherwise, with many different languages to deal with through that kind of timetable which Gerald has set out. You'll realise just how difficult it was. But the supreme architect, the ringmaster of the trip as we were there, was indeed Sir Gerald Kaufman. And I would like to pay tribute to his monumental efforts, tact, humour and goodwill in the course of what for me was a completely unique experience of this delegation, one from which I think none of us will ever be quite the same. In addition to being a Member of Parliament, I'm also a lawyer. I'm a QC and specialise in what it is worth, or I used to, in criminal matters, and I'm extremely interested in international law insofar as it applies to international crimes committed either by governments or by individuals. And what I was particularly interested to see, and what I was looking for, was to see whether I could see clear prima facie evidence of the commission of war crimes or crimes against humanity during the course of Operation Cast Lead, or indeed before that. I have to say I went with an open mind. I very much hoped that I would not find what we found, and I hoped that I would come away with reservations about the Goldstone report. I did not, and I don't think any one of the 60-odd delegations would have been any different. What we witnessed with our own eyes in terms of the destruction of civilian infrastructure, including schools, 2 schools, one of which 27 children had died during the course of the onslaught. And what we saw in terms of the destruction of civilian houses, what we saw in destruction of the Parliament building itself, which is a democratically elected Parliament, whether you like the Parliament or not, doesn't matter. They have their Parliament building, and that has been destroyed. It is extremely difficult to see how that act alone has anything to do with the defence of Israel. And we listened, as Gerald has said, to testimony given by those who had seen their families killed before their very eyes. This not by accident or error or the wanton use of mortar fire or artillery or aircraft. These were deaths which were caused by soldiers on the ground in circumstances which are wholly indefensible. And I listened to that testimony, we all did, and I have not the slightest doubt, and I speak carefully as a lawyer, that what we heard provided the strongest possible prima facie evidence of the existence of individual and collective war crimes. And that is what I went to discover. In addition to that, of course, we all saw the destitution which is being wrought by the years of blockade. And Jenny Tong, I know, will be talking about the effect that has had on people, and in particular upon children in the Gaza Strip. That is what I wanted to bring back with me, and in the debates which are undoubtedly going to take place in the course of the coming weeks and months in relation to Gaza, I at least will be able to speak now, not just simply on the basis of an academic study of Goldstone and other studies, but from first-hand sight and evidence from which I certainly will never forget in the whole of my life.
Thank you. Martin Linton.
Thank you, Gerald, and may I also pay tribute to the way in which you led our delegation. I visited Gaza last February, just after the Israeli offensive, and again this weekend. So I was in a position where I was able to see how much had changed in the last year. Last February, I was there as a member of an all-party delegation from this Parliament, and we saw the terrible devastation left by 22 days of relentless bombing and shelling. But the real tragedy was that last Saturday when we were there, when we visited the same places 11 months later, almost nothing had changed. Some of the debris had been cleared away, but there had been almost no new building, no reconstruction, no return to normality. We visited the village of Isbet Abed Rabba, I should say really the former village. It was totally destroyed in January last year. Every building was demolished by tanks and bulldozers and indeed by dynamite deliberately destroyed by the Israeli soldiers. None of those buildings have even begun to be reconstructed. Many people are still living in tents and much of the debris is still there. And the reason is perfectly clear. It's because the Israelis allow no building materials into Gaza, and because indeed Israeli warplanes systematically destroyed all the factories in Gaza that were producing cement and other building materials. We also visited Al Fakura Street, which was the scene of a shelling of civilians in a street. 24 civilians died in one of the worst incidents during the offensive, and that was a brigade under the command of General Herzi Halevi. He was one of the Israeli officers who suddenly cancelled a trip to London earlier this month for fear of being arrested. In my view, seeing the evidence of what his troops did, I think he should have been arrested, and indeed he should have been prosecuted. And if he comes to this country again, I hope that that opportunity will be taken. We also, I would say that really our visit, everything we saw was a complete confirmation, corroboration of the findings of the Goldstone report, which I hope the government will now support. We also spoke to the head of the de facto government, I think it's called, in Gaza, Ismail Haniyeh, and we were able to question him about his attitude to the peace process. And indeed, he assured us that he was not against declaring an independent state on the boundaries of 1967, and he supported all the efforts to do that and did not want to be in any way an obstacle to that. He also supported said that his government respected all the agreements signed in the past by the PLO and respected international law. So I think he gave all the assurances that we could reasonably expect about their commitment to the peace process, to the two-state solution, and to progress on all of those fronts. So I found it a very valuable visit, and not only as a Member of Parliament but also as Chair of Labour Friends of Palestine and the Middle East, I will do everything to continue our efforts to persuade the government, to urge the government not only to take the position they're doing, but also to put more pressure on Israel and the United States for firm action against the Israelis and in favour of the peace process.